oMLX is a new tool that's supposed to make AI faster on a Macintosh. Most tools in this space are optimized for PC, so I'm excited to see something built specifically for us Mac users. And it makes a very big promise. It claims you can run AI models that are too big for your RAM because it uses your SSD as overflow memory. The biggest problem with Mac is this: once you buy it, you can't upgrade the RAM. That's a Mac specific limitation and it matters to me. I run Gemma 4 as a local model on my Mac Mini pretty much all the time. It manages my email, helps with my LinkedIn DMs, and keeps track of hundreds of contacts. That local model uses about half of my RAM. So a tool that lets me run a bigger model in the same amount of RAM or run the model I already have using less RAM, that's exactly what I want. Today, I'm putting oMLX through 3 real tests on my 48 GB M4 Mac Mini, and I'll tell you exactly what happens. If this is your first time on the channel, welcome aboard. I put AI tools through practical tests to see if they're worth your time. I'm here to cut through the hype and find out if these tools can do anything that's actually useful. If that's what you're looking for, you've come to the right place. Please consider subscribing. Step one with any new tool is just getting it up and running. That means downloading the app, installing it, and getting a model loaded. With oMLX, this is where the wheels came off. Right out the gate, I ran into problems. Each model is around 27 GB, so before you could do anything else, you have to download one. The download in oMLX is locked at the anonymous Hugging Face rate, slow, about 30 minutes per model. You'd think, fine, I have a Hugging Face account, I have a token, I'll just paste it and unlock the faster rate. There's no field anywhere in the entire oMLX application to enter your Hugging Face token, none. There's an option to do a direct download with the URL and token embedded. I tried that, but it downloaded at exactly the same slow rate. I loaded the Hugging Face token through the terminal and it still didn't work. And here's the part that really hurts. The download doesn't leverage any of the normal browser style download mechanics that my Mac has built in. So if anything interrupts the download, and it doesn't matter whether you're at the computer or watching or not, it just times out and dies. There's no pause, the resume does not work, and you cannot pick it back up where it stopped. You have to start the whole 30-minute download over from zero. Every single model I tried to download failed 2 or 3 times before one finally went through. Compare that to LM Studio, which has been around longer and is built for normal users. With LM Studio, I can pause the download, shut my computer off, come back 6 weeks later, and resume right where I left off. It works perfectly. So what did I actually end up doing? I gave up on the oMLX downloader. I downloaded the model through LM Studio. Then I pointed oMLX and LM Studio's model folder. That's how I got a model loaded into oMLX through a different application. I make these videos for beginners, not advanced users. If a tool requires me to open the terminal just to use it, that's already a strong market against it because that means it's a tool I can't recommend to most of my audience. The harder you make a tool to use, the less I want to use it. Even if oMLX gave me a 5% speed boost over Ollama, this much friction would not be worth it. LM Studio is popular because it's easy. oMLX, it's the opposite. This is a small channel, and that means I read and respond to every single comment. So if you're looking for AI tools that can move the needle without requiring you to fire up the terminal, let me know in the comments below. That tells me I'm making the right type of content for you, and it tells me which tool to put through the next round of testing. Once I finally have a model loaded through LM Studio, not oMLX, here are the tests that I'm going to run. 3 tests on my 48 GB M4 Mac Mini. Test A: how much RAM does the model take before I start using it? I'll load the same 31 billion parameter model into oMLX, Ollama, and LM Studio. Same model, same machine, to see how much memory each tool uses, because oMLX claims to be more memory efficient than the alternatives. Test B: the conversation test. This is the test that matters because this is what people actually do with AI. I'll ask each tool to build a Python web scraper across 5 prompts. The prompts build on top of each other and increase in complexity. Prompt 1 is the architecture. Prompt 2 is the actual code. Prompt 3 adds CAPTCHA handling. Prompt 4 adds an analytics module. And finally, prompt 5 refactors everything into a proper Python package with a config file and a CLI. Every prompt forces the model to remember everything we already wrote. The longer the conversation gets, the harder the model has to work. This is the workload where oMLX's SSD cache should absolutely shine. Test C, and this is the big one. I'll try to load the 8-bit version of the same model, 33 GB on disk, The whole reason oMLX exists, according to their website, is that the SSD cache lets you run models that are too big for your RAM. Going in, what I really wanted was to run a 48 or even a 64 gigabyte model on my Mac. That would be a workflow changer. But I'm starting conservatively with 33 gigabytes to see if the concept even works on consumer hardware. Let's run the tests. Test A, how much RAM does the model lock up before I even start to use it? Same model, three tools, here are the numbers. LM Studio loads the model and immediately reserves 27.7 gigabytes of RAM. Ollama reserves 29 gigabytes, a little more than LM Studio, but it's still in the same ballpark. oMLX is different. It loads the model and reserves 0 gigabytes, none. It doesn't touch RAM at all until you send your first prompt. That's one thing that is genuinely different about how oMLX operates. After the first prompt, oMLX grabs about 27 gigabytes, similar to LM Studio. But here's the part the marketing doesn't tell you about. As the conversation grows, oMLX keeps using more and more and more RAM. By the time you've gone 5 prompts deep, oMLX is sitting at over 35 gigabytes. It grew by 8 gigabytes during the conversation test. That's a big deal. LM Studio and Ollama reserve their RAM up front. You know exactly what you have left to work with. oMLX does not, and then it grows as you go. By the end of a normal conversation, oMLX is using 8 gigabytes more memory than LM Studio. 8 gigabytes is enormous. RAM is the most expensive resource on a Mac because you cannot upgrade it after you buy the machine. On a 16 gigabyte Mac, 8 gigabytes is half of your entire machine. Even on a 48 gigabyte Mac like mine, that's a huge chunk of memory I can't use for anything else. So before we even get to the conversation results, oMLX is already failing its own marketing claim. It's not more memory efficient, it's significantly more memory hungry. Test B, the 5 prompt conversation. Each tool builds the same Python web scraper across the same 5 prompts. Ollama finishes all 5 prompts in 26.5 minutes. Token generation starts at 10 tokens per second on prompt 1. By prompt 5, it has dropped to 8.6 tokens per second. So Ollama gets about 16% slower over the course of this conversation. That's standard cache behavior. The longer the conversation, the more work the model has to redo every turn. oMLX finishes the same prompts in 31 minutes, slightly slower overall, but the token rate does not drop. It stays flat at 7.7 tokens per second from prompt 1 all the way through prompt 5. By the last prompt, half of all the tokens are being served from oMLX's SSD cache instead of recomputed. So on paper, that flat rate is the engineering win the marketing promises. Ollama starts faster but slows down. So if you keep talking for long enough, eventually Ollama becomes slower than oMLX. When does that actually happen? Not at prompt 8, not at prompt 10. The real threshold is closer to 30 minutes of continuous back and forth in the same conversation. After half an hour in the same thread, oMLX's flat rate starts to beat Ollama's degrader rate. But here's the practical reality. Ollama starts fast and slows down. oMLX is just always slow. 7.7 tokens per second is too slow, regardless of how consistent it is. Nobody actually wants to wait at that rate for hours of conversation. And 90% of conversations are not 30 minutes long with your AI anyways. Most of the time, you ask a question, get an answer, maybe follow up once or twice, and you move on. So even when oMLX's math wins on paper, the experience does not. And 90% of the time, you'll be running shorter sessions where Ollama just wins outright. Test C, the big one. This is the headline claim that got me to try oMLX in the first place. Their website says the SSD cache lets you run models too big for your RAM. So I'm starting conservatively. The 8-bit version of the same 31 billion parameter model is 33 gigabytes on disk. My Mac has 48 gigabytes of RAM. That leaves 15 gigabytes for the operating system, the browser, oMLX itself, and the cache management. If the cache trick works on consumer hardware, this should easily fit. Let's see what happens. I load the model and start a conversation. Prompt 1 finishes 18,000 tokens. Cache efficiency is at 50%. Memory pressure is already in the yellow, but so far so good. Prompt 2, memory pressure goes from yellow into the red. And prompt 3, partway through, my entire Mac freezes. The mouse won't move. I can't switch apps. I can't open Activity Monitor. I have to hold the power button down and hard reboot the machine. Here's what's happening. The SSD cache is not free. The cache still needs RAM to manage the cache. So once oMLX runs out of RAM headroom for cache management, the whole system thrashes and crashes. The benchmarks on the oMLX website are run on an M3 Ultra with 512 gigabytes of RAM. On that machine, 33 gigabytes is a rounding error. On 48 GB consumer Mac, even the conservative proof of concept absolutely fails. Test C is a hard fail. Before I give you my final thoughts, if you're finding this video interesting, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps. This is a small channel, and likes are how other people discover videos like this one. They make a huge difference in how many people find the channel, and they tell me which videos to keep making. It's a free way for you to sponsor me. You don't have to spend any money. Just tap the like button. So if any of this is useful, take a sec. Here are my final thoughts on oMLX. The headline is this: it crashed my machine. This is the first time any tool has ever crashed this particular Mac. So how can I possibly recommend something to you that crashed my computer? That's not a red flag, that's a black flag. That's an immediate automatic disqualifier. There is no scenario where I can recommend oMLX right now, and I'm not coming back to it for at least 1 or 2 years because this is that big of a deal. And the people who are out there recommending oMLX, that bothers me because I tested something other people were hyping and it crashed my Mac. So oMLX is not just disqualified for daily use, it's beyond disqualified. It failed every major test in this video. And then on top of that, it crashed my machine. There is zero upside. This isn't, I won't use this every day. This is delete it from your computer immediately. That's the verdict. But there's a bigger issue, and this is what I really want to talk about. The most important thing to me, more important than speed, more important than benchmarks, is that a tool needs to be easy to use for regular people. oMLX is not that. It's very technical. It's very command line heavy. It's not ready for normal users yet. If I tell you to go to GitHub and open the terminal, most of you are going to turn off the video right now. That's not because you aren't smart. It's because you don't want to use the command line. It's not 1986 anymore. When I was a kid, the first computer I used was an Apple IIc. All you had was a command line. That was 40 years ago. I do not want to go back to that, and I hate tools that pull me back to that. Every tool in the space that's still built like the users expect to be a developer is going to struggle. There's a reason that LM Studio dominates this space, and the reason is that LM Studio is built for normal people. It looks like a normal app. You install it, you click buttons, you use it. That's the bar. Look, I have the same issue with Ollama. Ollama is even more terminal only. There is no non-advanced user base for Ollama because they built it that way. And as long as these tools keep being built by technical people for technical people, they're going to keep losing to whoever shows up with an actual user interface. oMLX is in the exact same trap, but worse, because it adds the install nightmare on top of the technical only design. The user interface was honestly a nightmare. I am able to do this kind of testing. I can use the terminal, but I don't enjoy it, and I never want my real workflow to require it. That's the bar oMLX has to clear, and right now, it isn't anywhere close. So for now, oMLX is staying off my machine. I'll come back to it when they fix the install, build a real interface, and can actually deliver the bigger model promise on consumer hardware. If you want more of this in your feed, hit the subscribe button. The bell will notify you every time I release a new video. I hope you found this video useful, interesting, or at least entertaining. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for making it all the way to the end, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching one of my videos. Hit the like button, and then I've got a couple of sweet videos that I think you're gonna like. I've got one here and another one over here. You're gonna love them.